I'm also on my mobile, so maybe that's why for me.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Cycle, episode 8. Today, Grinder is actually hanging out with Larry Fink at some gentlemen's clubs, apparently. Not really sure what's going on with that, but he did update us that he stole all of the green M&Ms. Beardy stole the red last time, so we may have to come up with another color to steal from him. But
I actually have
welcome
an
to
update
episode
on
8.
that.
We have our good friend of the show, Tales from the Man Cave, joining us as a special
Hey,
guest. Thank
everybody.
you very much, sir, for joining us again. We love having you on, so it's great to see you back. And of
Thanks for
course,
having me.
it's Beardy in all his glory. So, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing great. I actually intercepted Grinder on the way to get the green M&Ms and placed them in my trunk. I gave him 2 breathing holes. I don't know, Joe, is it reasonable? He was asking for a 3rd breathing hole, but I said I'd talk about it.
Well, I mean, the dude from the Gimp from Pulp Fiction only needed 2, so I really don't think that he really needs more than 2. I mean, maybe if you want to feel generous, maybe, but I think he'd be all right.
So he can man up. I was thinking we bring Tails on. I think it was your idea. Since get somebody outside of the U.S. to talk about things.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea, for sure.
Until the age of 30, I was not aware there was other countries, and now I know there's at least 10 other countries in the world. So glad to have Mr. Tails on again.
I didn't even know there was 10. I thought there was only 4. So, I mean, you're way above me, bud.
So that's 10. That's Canada, Texas, and Cuba, or what 4 are those?
Well, it's Mexico.
California.
No,
California, right?
It's Mexico, Texas, Snow Mexico, which is Canada, and then Switzerland,
El Salvador,
and then Australia.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Australia.
Okay. No, not too bad. It's the most important ones you named there, so the rest is fluff,
Right, that's what I figured. So, all right, let's go ahead and hop on in. Tails, buddy, can you go ahead and just, from an outsider perspective, someone who's not in the U.S., let us know what you think is happening and give us your opinion on the BlackRock ETF, how everything is just playing out in America compared to the rest of Europe for the cryptoverse.
Yeah, I actually gave this some thought this afternoon, and I think one of the things that differentiates the US from the rest of the world or from Europe, where I'm located, is that in the US, everything tends to be politicized much more than in other countries because there's only 2 parties. So as soon as someone is pro or against something, the other party picks it up and does the inverse, basically, of what the other side does. So when something happens, when something advances like crypto or AI or whatever, there's always someone who has an opinion and tries to use it as ammo against, I guess, against the other side politically, even though that's not really perhaps necessary. That's one thing, because in Europe or here in Switzerland, we have many political parties, and usually not one single party has the majority vote on anything. So you always have to make coalitions with other parties that have different views, sometimes somewhat aligned, but generally different views and different goals. And you have to make compromises, and you have to find a middle way. So you never get these extreme opposites of where something is good or something is bad. It's just a little bad and a little good, and there's always more than one view on any single thing. So I think that makes a huge difference in the way it's discussed and the way people, especially people who don't, in terms of crypto, people that don't know much about it or perhaps even care much about it, that shapes how they experience what's being said about it, because it's always a black and white thing. It's either good or bad. And that's probably not the case. Some crypto projects may not be the greatest things since sliced bread, and others perhaps are. So I think that makes a huge difference. I don't know if can you sort of follow what I'm thinking there?
Yep, I think that's a good point. With having the 2-party system, especially with, like, we'll start with Bitcoin. The main is, of course, Bitcoin's the king. So it seemed like the right, so the conservatives kind of embraced it first from the freedom angle, and then
Mm.
the left kind of did the inverse as Tails was talking about, and then that kind of left me confused because I was researching what's his name, Jason Meyer on Twitter. He wrote a book called The Progressive Case for Bitcoin, which actually it can bank the unbanked and do all these cool things and it's bottom up instead of top down. You know, the people who are going to adopt it are going to be the people by necessity fleeing totalitarian regimes. Bitcoin being just a neutral money was like, wait a minute, how could this even be politicized? It was kind of like COVID when the masks were being politicized. Like if you wear your mask, you're on the left. If you don't wear a mask, you're on the right. I'm like, some things just shouldn't be politicized. I don't know. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I am kind of in the same camp with both of you guys. You have people who are always going to hate each other and disagree because they're on the opposite side of the political spectrum. If you want to look at that, like a perfect example of that the other day was McKinney, who is McHenry, who is the chairman of the board for finance in the House or the Senate. I think it's the House. And then, God, what's his name? Davis, I think, is the other representative. And like they couldn't even agree to call Gary Gensler in front of the House committee to speak without them going back and forth on it. It's like, well, you're just going to call him to bully him, and I want to call him to praise him. And it's like, who cares? Just call him and ask some questions. Like the American people and, by extension, the rest of the world have questions and we want answers, like stop making this a dog and pony show and start doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is working for the citizens of the country, like, we don't care who bought you off. And, like even there's that, James O'Keefe did that leak the other day with BlackRock and how they buy politicians and they, admit it and everything. And it's like, okay, so who bought and paid for you guys? Like, why aren't you doing what you're supposed to be doing? And like Tails said, in Europe, they have a much different set of political parties where they have, like the right, the kind of right, the in between right and left, and the left, the far left, the Green Party, the Red Party. I'm just making things up at this point, but you know what I mean. Like
No,
they
no,
have so
actually,
many.
it's quite true. It's quite true what you're saying. Pretty
Yeah,
much
they have
that's what it
so
is.
many different groups out there that they can come together and say like, hey, I may not agree with 100% of what you think, but you and I agree on 80% of this. We should get together and try to figure out how we can make this work for the people. Whereas the oligarchs in America just want to make war, and we are a war tribe. Let's be honest, America is a war tribe. We just want to get paid and instant gratification, and if you don't believe in what I believe, then you're the devil. It's just I think that, like Beardy said, there's a lot of things in this world that don't need to be politicized or criticized or anything. Like I think we can all agree on certain things, that people should be able to marry who they want to marry, people who should be able to love who they want to love, and like children should be allowed to be children. And like there's just, at the end of the day, there's so much division that I don't get it. And I wish that people would just come together and see what's really going on in the big picture, like that this isn't really what we think it is, that the money system is broken and we do need to take, like Beardy said, the politics out of it. It doesn't need to be, one side versus the other side, for about money. Money affects everyone equally. It should be a universal thing that we all can agree that we need to work on the betterment for it, it being the best for everyone, not just, a certain group of people. So
That's why I'm excited about RFK Jr. I don't know. everything about him, but he at least, I'm not going to compare him to Trump, but he kind of bashes everything, the current system over the head with a shovel, kind of breaking stuff up.
Yep.
He's
RFK is
been
very interesting.
he's been censored for how many years, so he's not going to hold back. He's not going to, and he has strong enough lineage with JFK and his dad RFK, that such a strong political line or whatever, that I think, people are going to at least hear what he has to say, and he's not going to be canceled. Now with the newer platforms like Twitter and doing podcasts, it's harder for him to cancel. So it seems like he's trying to bring some common sense and, trying to bring people together instead of just the us versus them kind of thing.
That's very true, Beardy. Although I think he's going to have quite a rough time with financing his campaign, because the people with the big money, they profit a lot from the division, right?
Yep.
That's where you come in.
And I
Tails
think
Tails is an EOS whale. He can probably fund it by himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that
more of a
EOS
magic
pump I
whale
saw
than
the other
out.
day.
It just should be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't know if they have enough money, but we'll see. He's at least very pro Bitcoin.
I don't know if that's really going to play as much of an issue this cycle, because if he keeps going on like the All In podcast, if he keeps going on like Rogan podcast, if he keeps getting the attention that he's been getting, enough people may start to go to him where they really don't have an option but to at some point say, okay, we have to do the democratic thing. We have to hold debates. We have to do it. And he may. I think there's about a 10% chance that he actually gets the nomination. But if he does, I'm very interested to see how that plays out with him, Bitcoin, and everything, and how
it would be.
That.
I think it'll be up to the boomers to see how much power they still have left in them. They're kind of trying to hold on to their last bit of. I think once the boomers turn over, it'll be more realistic, but we'll see.
Yeah, that could be a true. Yeah, that is a thing. I think that we're getting to the point where I think this is going to be like maybe the last 10 years of the old guard really holding as much power as they do. I think they may have this election, maybe the next, maybe one after that. But there's so many. That's, if you're talking about presidential election, that's 12 years. That's a long time. That's a lot of people retiring, a lot of people passing away, of older age. A lot of younger generation, or the younger generations coming in, starting to vote. And Tails, maybe you can give your opinion on this, because you're in Europe. Do the younger generation seem to be getting more and more interested in politics and finance and stuff like that, like they do here in the U.S.?
I was just going to say, my experience here is the opposite, actually, that
Really?
young people don't care. And I spoke to the CEO of a bank, a smaller bank, recently. I'm working as a photographer, and I had a job. I was doing a job for them, and I was talking to him for a bit. And he had some sort of leadership training where they dealt specifically with like the generation that's coming into jobs right now after they come out of college, come out of school, and they think very differently, and they don't want to work as much. They want to be just laid back and not have any problems, and they're really difficult to lead, and they don't really engage. They're just concerned with themselves and don't engage in the bigger picture. So I'm actually, if this is different in the US, that'd be great to hear, actually, because here we're not really seeing that. It's sort of the my age, 40 plus into the 60s. That's the people that are really opinionated about stuff. Everybody else is just sort of flowing with the stream of things and not really trying to influence it so much. At least that's what we're sort of experiencing at the moment.
maybe I just live in a vacuum because I spend a lot of time, like trolling through and like through Twitter on the finance stuff and see a lot of people who look to be younger. Maybe I just, like I said, I live in a vacuum. I'm a hermit, so
Yeah.
I never really go out anywhere. So maybe you
I
are
think
right
I
on
think
that.
Twitter is not really representative. I
Yeah,
think
that's probably true.
places like Instagram and TikTok are much more representative of what's going on, and the picture is quite different there, I'd say.
Oh yeah, I to be honest with you, I don't have any social media other than this YouTube and Twitter. That's the only thing I have. So
Mm.
But
yeah.
anybody with an Audible credit, I just finished listening, kind of ties into it, called The Fourth Turning. I don't know if you guys have read that book, but
I
kind of
haven't. I've
goes
heard Rob mention it.
through the four, basically everything's a cycle for all the four generations, kind of explains this kind of stuff. It's pretty neat if anybody ever wants to read
Okay.
it or listen to it.
Can you give us the TLDR of it?
Oh geez, I'll butcher it. Well, I'll just say, like right now we're in the fourth turning where everything's chaos. It looks so bleak. It's never gonna happen. And then I think maybe Bitcoin adoption and everything, and then there would be like some peace. And so the first turning would be like after World War II, they're coming off the high. The war is over, and now that's when they start making all the babies, the baby boom generation, and productivity was good. And then, but and it goes on second, third, just little nuances of different generations.
Okay, right on. Well, we'll definitely have to check it out. Question number 2, if you guys don't have any, you guys have anything else to say on that, or?
Well,
I
just as a
just
quick
hope it. Sorry, my only thing I was going to say, I hope it's not Biden again.
Yeah.
And from my end, and it might actually lead quite nicely into the second topic. What I said initially, that everything's being politicized, including crypto, that's just what people hear and how politicians present the issue. I think behind the scenes, it was never the plan to stop this ever, personally.
Oh, Gensler's got a
It's
big
always
bag of
been
Bitcoin, I bet.
it's always been just do it the way they want, or make it let it happen the way they want it to happen, and not how it might happen naturally if they didn't do what they do. So that brings us actually nicely into the Bitcoin ETF, right?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting. Yeah, I mean, you definitely could be right on that. This could be just us getting led by our nose, drug around for the last couple of years while they weren't playing their games. But question 2: now that BlackRock has filed, everyone has seemed to be piling on the Bitcoin spot ETF game. Do you think Gary will reject them all, or do you think he has to approve them now that there's so much attention on it, and given that BlackRock is saying that we're interested in doing this?
You want me to start? Yeah, I can start, and I think we have a lot of similar thoughts. So that's where Joe will leave a link in the descriptions. So we follow Ken Stanfield, his YouTube channel, and he does very deep dives. Brilliant person. He did a video on this, which basically BlackRock having 10 trillion in assets. They got pretty good lawyers, and so the way it sounds like to me, SEC and Gary, potentially they don't have as much clause to sink into this thing. I think, what did Tails call it? Like jujitsu move. Like, so they're not exactly, there's something with the auditing where they weren't, I don't know, I'm going to butcher this, but they're not beholden like to the SEC for auditing and some other things, and just the way they worded it. And then their track record of, they've had 577 approved versus one unproved. And then my tinfoil hat for Joe would be, well, so there's a saying called, if retail misses the boat, they miss the boat. If institutions miss the boat, they just bring the boat back. So what if they wanted to suppress it? As long as they could kind of collaborate and say, oh, hey, Gary, why don't you make it, deny it, and then we'll, basically FUD, make it a big deal, and then of course price, everybody'd freak out, retail, suppress it for a while. They want to get as many clients in as low price as possible. But I'm interested here. Joe, your thought about my tinfoil hat theory, and Tails, I know you watched the video as well. You could probably get into that a little bit better.
I 100% actually agree with that. I think that with how we've seen again, again, going back to that James O'Keefe BlackRock thing, we've seen that they are willing to do whatever it takes to, keep themselves in profit. And if that means wrecking a bunch of retail people and driving them out of the market so they can buy their coins cheaper, that doesn't strike me as something that they wouldn't do at all. So I actually am on board with that kind of theory. Maybe they were not doing it all along, but I definitely think in the last 18 months or since the crash, I definitely think that they've been wanting this to happen. So because they finally have realized that what Bitcoin is and everything, or maybe they've always known and they're just they've always been stacking and they just wanted one more chance to get in real cheap.
And then the other thing to point out is Coinbase is their chosen custodian, whom Gary
Right,
is
which is
suing.
hilarious.
So that seems kind of makes you scratch your head. We'll throw it over to Tails.
Yeah, I'm also taking my information from Ken Stanfield, who actually read the 100-page filing that BlackRock did, and obviously he understands the legal language in there much better than me or Beardy do. And it is the fact of the matter that it's sort of an ETF mostly, and everybody talks about it as an ETF, but it's actually labeled a trust. And with a regular ETF, what you own basically a portion of whatever is in that ETF. Traditionally, that would be a bunch of stocks, some sort of basket, and you fractionally own part of that basket. And if you buy a piece of that ETF or a couple of shares of that ETF, you own the appropriate shares from those companies that are in the ETF. And it would be the same for a spot ETF, traditionally speaking, and how they've been filed many times before and got rejected. And with this one, it seems that you don't really own the underlying asset. You own, I don't know what to call it, but you can redeem them. It's not like a one-to-one. You just buy a certain amount of shares, and then it's like an index fund, sort of. That's how I understand it. So
Just watch the
you're,
video, everybody. Don't
yeah.
listen to me.
But it's not the same thing. It's not the same filing as all the other companies did before and got rejected. And it's quite complicated how they legally structured it, but it's done in a way so the SEC doesn't really have much to say based on the reasons why they rejected the other ETFs. Another big portion of it is that NASDAQ, the company, obviously runs the NASDAQ exchange, would be sort of the institution in between to verify the prices and to make sure that there's no manipulation of the Bitcoin price within the ETF, because that was one of the reasons the SEC had in the past
Supposedly.
why they wouldn't approve. Supposedly, yeah, but now they went and said, okay, that's your problem, so we're putting in the NASDAQ. They're going to verify the prices, that nothing shady has been going on. So I'm pretty sure that one's going to get approved. Whether all the other ones are going to be approved depends on how they structured their project. If they basically copy paste the BlackRock, then maybe they have to. But I guess not sure they did. But what also becomes clear is that this is not something that BlackRock put together like last week. They've been working on this for a long, long time.
Yeah, I definitely think that you're right on that. They've been doing it over the last few months to try and play it out.
Ken is very level-headed, way more level-headed than me, and he gave it, I want to say he put it at about a 90% chance of approval.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be very curious to see if like Grayscale and those other guys, if who had previously been rejected, if they went to Gary and said, "What if we agree to do at as BlackRock is doing? Would you approve of it then?" Or we'll see if something like that maybe.
I think somebody will end up buying the Great Scale Trust, maybe even BlackRock. I don't know. But I
I
think
I heard
in,
Fidelity was
Yeah, me too. I heard about that as well, that Fidelity might be doing that.
I think
But the
Grayscale
also
as
the
is
interesting thing is
done.
also for GBTC, Coinbase is also the custodian for GBTC.
right, but
So it's really all
they
the
also
coins are with Coinbase.
and they also sell for the government, the U.S. government. They sell the U.S. government's Bitcoin. Like, I don't understand.
It's a very interesting part of it, though. I think that everything is sort of quite concentrated there.
Yeah,
But
I think that
sorry, in the
they have been slowly and steadily climbing the ladder. I'm sorry, Coinbase has. I think they've been slowly and steadily trying to talk to everyone, and I think they're going to come out the winner um, of the if there is a lawsuit that does end up going into play out of Binance. I think we talked about it. We did. I mean, Beardy and I and Grinder did a few weeks ago. I think that they have a better chance with Brian Armstrong as the CEO of coming out victorious and looking better than Binance in the U.S. at least. But that's just my opinion.
and in the spirit
Possible.
of our show title, "Breaking the Cycle for Financial Freedom," I would advise people, if you have the opportunity, just buy the pure form self custody of the Bitcoin. But
Yep.
this is
Yep.
good for an option which hasn't been approved yet. If you have like 401k, 403b, where you have no other options, then maybe you could do that. But best is always to own the pure form and self custody, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely. It would be nice though. I would. I have friends who are older and they aren't comfortable self storaging, and even some of my friends who are my age and even younger, they're not comfortable with self custody. They're like, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to do it. So I was like, well, you could, technically buy proxies like buying MicroStrategy, Coinbase. I'm sure that, like the Grayscale Trust, you could buy into that. But I explained to them it's not the same as holding like the pure form. But it would be nice to have the option for some people to buy a Bitcoin ETF. That would be, I think,
Yep.
nice.
Custody will evolve over time. I think they'll have better solutions. And of course, it's always an educational process. Like, I never thought I was going to self custody, but after a couple of years, it's going in baby steps. Now I'm comfortable with it. But
It was absolutely terrifying sending the first time I tried to transfer stuff to my ledger when I first got into it. God, that was terrifying. I'd be sending over like dollar transactions, $5 to make sure it went through, and I'd send a couple of those and be like, I'm still not sure if I'm going to do this. I'll do it tomorrow.
and then just to
Well,
wrap up, sorry, go ahead, Tails.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
My final thought was just that I think if they do approve it, I think, yeah, then there'll be a bunch of copycat. He'll have to approve a bunch more.
Yeah. Tails, what were you going to go on about, buddy?
I actually think that this is my tinfoil hat theory. I think anything that keeps people from doing self custody is more likely to be approved. So
Interesting.
I think with the way this one is structured, and with BlackRock stepping in, BlackRock owns the Bitcoin, and you do not. You own the shares of the ETF or of the trust, and it's all concentrated at Coinbase, and all the coins that are in there are not in the hands of individuals to do with how they please. They just own an IOU, right?
Yeah.
And they can sell that, and they sell it back for US dollars or whatever currency the ETF is issued in, and that's it. And the coins never go to anybody. They never go off the market, so to say. They're all in. I wouldn't even say BlackRock's hands. They're just in storage where they are relatively controllable by the government. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. It's kind of scary, actually, if you think about it.
And I think Ledger's not wrong in their business model. I know that was last month, but there's a lot of people, they just don't want to be responsible for their own destiny, and they don't trust themselves. So there's maybe half the population will never even consider it. That it is a radical paradigm shift, being fully responsible for your own keys. They've always been used to trusting custodians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's, I think James said in his video the other day, he mentioned this, that you want to be going the opposite direction of the way everyone else is going, right? If the masses are going one way, then there's always going to be that select group of people who are going to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go that way instead of that way, Yep. And they're always going to want to blaze their own path. But I think there's going to be a lot of people who, like you said, Beardy, are not comfortable with that. And they just want to go with the status quo and be told, do what they're told and go to their 9 to 5. And, they want to live their existence as it is. They don't really want to, like you said, live their destiny or fulfill their destiny or try and go out and be different,
Yep. Agreed. What do you got next, Joe?
So the next question we have is actually from a member of our community. So let me get the cat.
Thanks, Mom.
On Twitter.
Thanks, Mom.
Alex. Shout out to Alex.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah, he's a really cool person. So why hasn't the higher cost of capital slowed growth in Bitcoin/equities? What is driving this run? Will the growth sustain? Are we overvalued? What is your outlook for net liquidity moving forward to the year end?
Can you scroll a little
as our
lower?
guest.
Show my GIF reply.
Go ahead.
Can you scroll a little lower? Show my GIF there.
Oh, yes, I definitely can, buddy.
This was my initial response.
I was just going to say,
actually, Alex came up with some really smart questions, and I had to Google some of those words. So
maybe we should have him on. He's too smart for me.
Yeah. Maybe Alex, we'll have to have you on the show, buddy. Tales, as our honorary guest, sir, would you like to take it away on that one?
Yeah. I mean, the questions are very specific, so I'm not sure if I can really answer them to the fullest. But I guess the first one, I'm not sure that the money ever came from there. So, I mean, who is buying now? And actually, coming back to James from Invest Answers, he sometimes shows a chart that shows which sort of cohort is buying up Bitcoin. And recently it has been the whales mostly. And that brings up another question I actually have. Who are the whales? You tend to think of them as some rich individual on a big yacht, but maybe it's BlackRock, right? Buying behind the scenes. So those are the cohorts that have been buying, those that already have a lot. And those people or institutions are not really, they don't need to raise money via the traditional means where you have to pay more in interest right now, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that's where the money is coming from. It's and a little bit of retail, people that have been sitting on cash waiting to deploy. So I don't think there's a direct correlation there right now. It will be going forward, I'm quite sure. So if it's harder for your average institution or average business who maybe wants to get into this to raise money at a reasonable interest rate, that might slow down things a little bit, I'm sure. So it's a really good question, but I think we're too early for that. What do you think?
I think that most of the retail sector kind of blew their load when Bitcoin hit that 18, 19,000 level. I think everyone who was sitting on cash was like, this is the time we're going to use it. And to be honest with you, I think it kind of has slowed the growth. I mean, we're only sitting and I say only, but I mean, we're sitting about 30,000 and have been in that range. And we only really broke that range in the last couple of days, really. and before that it was in the 20s. So I think that it kind of has slowed it to a certain extent, but I think that, like you said, the retail, the big whales that are coming in are going to be maybe the BlackRock people and everyone. I think that they have been sitting on cash for so long, and they have so much cash that it really doesn't matter to them what the price is or what happens. They're just going to keep buying no matter what.
I think so too, and that's why I actually kind of doubt, like some people say, that there will be some sort of major dip down to 12 or 10K again, just so BlackRock can load up. I think they know where this is going, and I don't think they really care. And those are the people that made a lot of money selling not perhaps the top, but at the higher prices end of 21, be it in stocks or elsewhere, and they have cash, and if they buy at 20K, 30K, 16K, it really doesn't matter that much. So I don't think that will really happen personally.
Yep. Beardy, what about you, Bubba?
I can take a stab at it out of respect to the cat. Let me zoom in here so I can don't want to miss any of his questions here.
Yeah, it's why hasn't the higher...
Oh, I got him right in front of me. Why
Okay.
isn't the higher cost of capital?
Yep.
The higher interest rates. Yeah, that's a good question. I think part of it's just as we transition systems from fiat to current system. Obviously, it's a bad system we got. So right now, I think we can kind of do the slow kill, death by 1,000 cuts. They put up the debt ceiling 4 or 5 trillion within the next couple of years. So they're going to keep printing. And what's driving this run? I think price was just so beaten up after midterms and stuff. I think there was a lot of people on the sidelines. So I do think it's sustainable for a while. I watched Ben Cohen and Guy and Dan's video the other day. They didn't think we were overvalued yet. They thought Ben's got into the cryptoverse, all those crazy metrics. He didn't think we'd be overheated until it was about 40K Bitcoin, roughly. And liquidity, the only thing I got to say about liquidity is I just liquidated my shorts after Taco Bell. I don't know about liquidity. I don't know.
Yeah, we know you and those Taco Bell, that late night Taco Bells are pretty infamous, buddy.
If I don't know,
I don't understand why you keep going back though. But maybe try a different shop sometime.
It tastes so good.
Have you? You know what? He's actually got a lifetime supply of Chipotle away and Taco Bell away in his closet. I don't know if you guys remember that episode of South Park.
No, I haven't seen
No,
that.
I'll send a clip to the group chat later. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, anytime I don't know something, I have no shame saying I don't know.
Tails, buddy, do you want to take a crack at the other what was driving the run, and is the growth sustainable?
I mean, what's driving the run is pretty obvious. That it's the news with all the renewed interest through institutions coming in. I don't think it will be sustainable because it'll take a while for these things to be approved. I mean, if the BlackRock filing would be approved in a couple of weeks, that'd be one thing, but it's probably going to take, the SEC is not known to be the fastest to do these things. So even though Larry Fink might be knocking on Gary's door and kind of ushering to him to get it done, it'll probably take a while, and it would look really suspicious if this one got approved really fast. So I think it's going to take a while, and that'll take steam out of the run for the intermediate time. So I would expect things to stay a little bit neutral going forward, dipping down a little bit again, but I don't think it's going to dip down really hard. Okay. But it's going to be perhaps a little bit boring, I could imagine, until the fall.
I think the deadline, Tails, if I'm right, was it 8 months they have to respond, which would kind of coincide with the halving?
Yeah. I think they gave it a certain time frame that is a couple of months before the halving.
So that should be interesting to watch. I don't. Yeah, they definitely won't do it right away.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely correct on that, Tails. That it is institutions coming in, and maybe a little bit of FOMO from
Yeah, for sure.
retail, from the people who are like, oh wait, BlackRock's getting into that. Okay, maybe because I've had people who, when I said I've talked to, and they're like, oh yeah, you still in that Bitcoin? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, it's a scam, right? And I'm like, you do realize that BlackRock just filed an ETF for it? And they're like, wait, BlackRock did, really? And all of a sudden they're like, huh, so maybe we should talk about this, and so I think there is that to a certain extent. There is a little bit of retail people who had been hesitant to jump in before, who are now being like, all right, I'll throw a couple bucks into it. We'll see how it plays out. Is the growth sustainable? In the long term, yes, but like you said, it's going to be 8 months to a year. I think that we're going to play the maybe 23.5 to like 30. I honestly don't see it going above 35 anytime soon. I think
Funny
that
funny you say that. I don't know if you do much TA, Joe, but I think there was a nice fresh air gap between 30. If it goes much above 30, it could go to 35 pretty easy, just based on
I was,
psychology.
I was just gonna say, Beardy, looking at my chart here, also with the Stanfield levels, like 35 is a pretty good guess, and then you're gonna have pretty hard sell pressure.
Yeah,
Oh,
So
do
like I said, I
do you
think
want to share it? Can you share a screen?
yeah, if
Or
you
no?
want to. Like I said, it may go. If you want, do you want to share your screen, buddy? I can take this down. Tails, did you want to share your screen, your
oh
chart?
no, it's fine. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'm just saying, looking at my chart here on the other screen, I have a couple of screens here.
Okay.
And that's about, we could see a spike here and there up to 35, which would be a nice position to take some profits, actually. So that's something to
Yeah.
think about.
I
I was
think
just going by memory.
it'll play that range where if it does go up to 35, cool, but then there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to take profits. Like I said, I think that, or are going to sell some and wait for the dip so they can buy a little bit more cheaper. But I don't see us really going crazy until the halvening gets closer. So I think, like you said, Tails, is going to be a pretty boring summer into fall, and it's just going to play the range and do what it's going to do. As the last, are we overvalued? No, I don't think we are yet. Maybe when we hit like the 35-ish level, then some people may say that we are, and start taking some profits and be tempted to, but I don't think we're going to be overvalued right now.
Yeah, and
And then
I was going to say, I don't think it's really a retail game anymore. I think that's great that people are getting it, but their $100 Bitcoin isn't moving the needle nowadays.
yeah, that's true. That could be also very true. What is your outlook for net liquidity moving forward to the end of the year? I just think retail is gonna throw what little money that they have right now into it. They're gonna keep, people who are DCAing are gonna keep DCAing into it, but it's not really going to do anything until BlackRock or someone gets approval for an ETF, and then they start going in heavy. But that's just my opinion. Tails?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. Like, and whose liquidity, right? Retail or institutional? I just think there's enough liquidity out there to buy heavy price drops, so it actually won't drop as much. I think there's still enough money on the sidelines. Not so much from retail, perhaps, but from the institutional side, or from people with a lot of money. They always have dry powder. That's what professionals do. You always keep your money on the sidelines to deploy when prices are attractive. So I think now, with those news out, that it's gonna be at some point okay to own Bitcoin. I think we're gonna see more of that. That the dips are gonna be bought up pretty quickly by smart money.
I think the stat was 5% of BlackRock's assets under management would currently equal what Bitcoin's market cap is right now, so, or something like that. So
more
and
or
then
less, yeah, about 8%. Yeah.
obviously there's a lot of other players. So
And I mean, with who did that? Was it Ken as well? I can't remember. Like all the players, like with Fidelity and Citadel, and I can't even remember all the people that went into this. With Deutsche Bank applying to be a custodian as well, it's like 30 trillion or something of assets under management that could potentially be moved towards Bitcoin. Obviously, they won't be. But even if it's just a 0.5% or 1% of that, it's going to be a huge, huge move.
Yeah, that would
get
be.
get your belt buckle ready, Joe.
Yeah. I mean,
Buckle
that
up.
if that really does happen, like everyone's saying, I think James had a number, and it was like if the hedge fund people, the Black Rocks and all of them, if they decided to put 5% of their net worth or whatever their funds and management into Bitcoin, it would shoot up to something preposterous. Like I think he said it was like $700,000. I don't, and that I could be wrong about that, so don't quote me on that. But I know the number was huge, and like that's just mind blowing. That's just that jump. If that actually does happen to 5%, and at that point, you kind of have to wonder, um, how long would that take for them to do? Are they going to layer it in? As or are they just going to say, F it and just throw all the money in at once? Or are they going to? I don't know how that would work. I don't know how they would buy that much. That much money doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know how they would layer into that. I'm not sure, to be completely honest with you.
Well, the one thing is they would have to layer in, and they would always do that, and it would be an OTC trade over the counter, so not on a whatever exchange. The liquidity
So
is not even there. So
maybe
they would
Coinbase or something, or how does that work?
yeah, I'd say okay, we want to have, I don't know, let's buy 50,000 Bitcoin,
Okay.
and then you would get a deal, and you wouldn't pay what the actual price is right now. There would be a discount, and it wouldn't. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I must assume that it wouldn't immediately show up on the exchange, because it's just they would probably still be in custody at Coinbase for in the initial phase, anyways. Coins wouldn't really move. It would just be they are owned now by this and that institution for that and that price. So yeah.
I bought OTC. That was my crowning achievement because it has to be $10,000 or more. If you buy OTC, there's no fees, and then they quote you at a price, and then you have so long to like lock it in, and you can only do so much at a time. But that's just for me. It was small potatoes. I can only imagine for an institution how they do it.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I don't know how over the counter trades work. That might have actually
there's no
better
fees.
for me.
No fees, and you get a better deal. But it has to be, at least at the time of Binance US, it was $10,000 minimum.
Same for GBTC. You can only buy over the counter as well.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Interesting.
To where the big boys play, Joe.
Yeah, obviously I'm not cool enough to be one of the big kids, unfortunately. So
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Maybe one day. That was kind of the last question. 4 was just any closing statements or anything you guys wanted to address that happened over the week.
I mean, I do think it's interesting that so many players followed BlackRock. I didn't really expect that. And usually, when bigger moves happen or bigger news come, El Salvador, then it's just El Salvador, and then you hear nothing for a long time. I didn't really expect that there was so much coming in the aftermath of that, and there still kind of is. Like, I'm hearing stuff daily, also out of Europe. Was it yesterday? Santander, I think one of Spain's biggest banks, they're applying for Bitcoin or digital asset custody. And I remember, I think it was Guy from Coin Bureau, because Santander also has quite a big of a lot of clients in the UK, and must have been 2 years ago when they were really, really anti-crypto. And I think a guy from Coinbureau even had an account there, and he said publicly that he closed it because they were so anti, and they wouldn't let him do anything or onboard to Binance or whatever from his Santander banking account. And all of a sudden, they're doing custody. So I think that is really interesting. I mean, there is a lot of movement and probably a lot more movement behind the scenes that we are not aware of. So steady lads, I guess.
Have you
Don't get
heard
fussed.
the rumor that Larry Fink has gotten the kind of the quiet nod from Gary that this is going to be approved, and that's why so many people and the other hedge funds are now moving towards this? Or have you heard that? Have you guys heard that rumor?
Not at all, but I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think BlackRock would do this if they thought it wouldn't get approved, especially with their track record of like 500 something to 1 ETFs being approved. So I don't think they would do it if they felt they would have the same fate as all the other ones, because that would be just a bad look, right?
Definitely. Beardy, how about you, Bubba?
Hadn't heard that. I'll just leave with just some general advice. I think my beardy babies are starting to wake up here. So,
We got to, yeah.
nope. But I'd just say keep stacking. The reason we do this, we want people to better their lives, kind of get out of the system. Try to stack as much as you can before all these spot Bitcoin ETFs are approved. I did a really short video just kind of explaining things because I was trying to explain it to my coworker, and just stack as much as you can, and then just educate yourself as much as you can. Follow. I think we all follow similar people that we can trust. There's not that many, like Digital Asset News, James Invest Answers, Ben Cowan, Ken Stanfield, and then if you're the degen in me, if you're going to trade, learn how to trade correctly, have a plan. And that's where me and Tails have been following Ken for the longest time, and CTKS method is what we do. And I think you should probably tell him to touch some grass too, maybe.
Yeah. I agree with everything y'all both just said. Really don't have anything other than to add, other than just, like Tails said, keep steady and just enjoy the ride. It's going to be what it's going to be, and buy the dips, and remember that everything is temporary, and we know where this is going to eventually end up. So just ignore the FUD and go outside, and remember, touch some grass. Yeah. I think it's a big part of needs to be a big part of everyone's day, is going outside and getting some sunlight and getting away from technology for a little bit. And remember that, that there is a lot of good out there. And if we focus on the negative of social media and how everyone is arguing about what Bitcoin is or what digital asset is, just if you believe in it, and ignore what everyone else is saying and just do you.
And I want to give one more huge thank you to Tails. He's been gracious, giving us an hour of his time, but he's always been very helpful for me, taking time out to help me with things that I struggle at, which is technology and all things digital. So Tails, thank you so much for helping a bearded bastard in America.
You're very, very welcome. Enjoying every minute of it. It's been a pleasure. One thing I wanted to also say, it's okay for people to take profits. So if you see Bitcoin, jumping up towards that 30, 35 level there, it's totally fine to sell some. You don't have to be a hodler for life. Don't sell everything at once, but you can sell a little bit. Price will come down again. Everything that goes up steeply comes down steeply again.
Yeah.
So you will be able to buy back. It's not going to be a straight line.
Sharp angles reverse.
Indeed, they do.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we really do love having you on, Tails. So thank you very much for coming on today. Like we said last time, we love having you on. So it's a lot of fun whenever we get to chat with you, especially in the group chat. So we'll have to try and schedule you to come on at least once a month, maybe, or something, so we can get your kind of perspective from Europe. That would be great if you're willing to do that.
Grinder's been replaced.
Yeah, Grinder, sorry.
Sorry, he's in the trunk, but he's been replaced.
Do throw a bone in the trunk and maybe give him that third hole.
I'll think about giving him a third bullet hole so he can breathe.
Maybe just a smaller diameter hole of the first two,
Yeah.
you know. So
So he doesn't get too excited.
He's getting kind of needy. It's always give him an inch, they'll take a mile, you know?
yeah, you know, if he wants
It's what they do.
water
It's
and
what they do.
food, he doesn't want to be locked in a trunk and a leather suit. I don't know what the guy's deal is. Just so needy.
Larry's gonna be pissed he didn't get those green M&Ms. So
Yeah, well, you know, is what it is. He can afford to buy some more. If anyone can afford it, then you know Larry probably can. So that's the end of the show, guys. So we want to thank Tails for coming on. Beardy, as always, thank you, Bubba. If you guys have any other questions, I think you can find your Twitter is Tails from the Man Cave, correct, Tails?
Tales of Mancave is the Twitter handle.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. And then Beardy is Beardy Day, and then I am Crypto Conversations with Joe. Thank you guys so much for coming by. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Have a great day. Go outside, touch some grass, and enjoy your weekend.
Will do. Same to you, Joe. Thanks.
Thanks.